Welcome to our weekly, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly integration sync. Today, we're going to be getting updates from the team on all the great work we're doing integrating .sama and Ethereum ecosystems with Subspace. We got some exciting news and updates there. To start off, Ved, if you want to give us an update on what you've been working
on. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Last week was mostly focused on getting the feeds palette, at least the grandpa validations done. Let me quickly share my screen to the PR. Right. Okay. Not this one. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, that's the one. Cool. The goal of this particular palette is to verify the relay chain blocks based on their finality proofs before we import them as part of our feeds palette. We do not do that before, and this is the first integration that we're doing with Substrate, followed by Ethereum and other chains that we want to bring in later down the line. Let me, like in quick terms, let me just take you through like what how this looks like, what changed exactly. The main
we don't need to do a full update like we did yesterday. So just anything that's changed since the call yesterday, or maybe you can give a high level overview for Serge or Skylar.
Okay. I think Serge is up to date, but I'm gonna fall back to Skylar. The one that I was showing right now, the PR, was mostly to actually verify the blocks that are pushed in right now, and that was as part of the SRS recording as well. That basically what it does is takes the block sent by the layer, verifies it, and then imports it, and then that's it. We are done there. Now, as part of the next step, what we're doing is to make some more changes on top of this. So what the changes that we are making in this PR is specifically focused on feeds, like how exactly we interact with feeds and the direction that we're taking with the feeds. We want the feeds to be able to process data or the objects that are coming in from the relayer. It can be blocks, it could be any kind of data that someone might have want to put it as part of our key value storage, right? So it could be, so the verification that we have right now as part of this PR is default one that points to not validating anything, just simply importing data that hasn't come in, as and when they come in. Or there is one more implementation that we do specifically for Polkadot was to verify blocks that are coming in. Give me a second, let me quickly go there. Yeah, so we have Polkadot implementation as well. That actually what it basically does is basically it expects a block to come in and then verify and connect the previous work that we have done as part of the finality proofs. Apart from that, what we've introduced in this one is also something called closing a feed, as well as updating, as well as deleting a feed. So at the moment, the palette feeds do not have that. Like what it has is basically a creation and then putting data into that feed and nothing much. We want to introduce some kind of ownership to the feeds and also have some kind of a permissioned calls. Right now, every call that you see in the current runtime is a permissionless call. If you see here, yeah, we just ensure that it's signed. We don't check who is owning the feed. We just ensure that it's coming from someone who has enough to spend on actually creating a feed or putting something into the feed. Now, with the ownership model coming in, we want to bring in who is the owner for the feed and who can potentially close these fields, who can feed, who can delete a feed. The difference between the closing and deleting is basically closing doesn't remove the state on chain that we store as part of individual feeds. It just simply stop accepting new items that are coming in. In difference with delete is basically deletes everything on the state right now. It doesn't store any data that is related to the feed. Of course, right now these two are permissionless because we do not have an idea, like we do not have an ownership model, which is going to be the next follow-up that we are planning on as part of this feeds change that I'm working on.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Anyone, any questions who are here right now?
Just, I guess, next steps, when do we think it'll be production ready?
Okay, so the PR is out there, Jeremiah, for the base changes that I've discussed right now, not the ownership changes that needs to be implemented. Ideally, I want to get this PR in a stable state for the review. Like it's already being reviewed by Nazar and Ivan as well, but I want to give it today to see if there are any major changes coming in. If not, then I'll potentially fork off of this branch and then work on the ownership model parallelly. Um, my hope, my idea is to get this PR in by end of this week, hopefully, so that I've also spoke with Serge, so he's already working on it simultaneously, the changes. So my aim is to get this one in by end of this week, and maybe mid of this next week we'll have the ownership changes in, and at that point we could start looking at benchmarkings and actual plan of runtime upgrades. I am yet to write the flow of runtime upgrades yet, but I'm focused on this, but I'm gonna get there as soon as I'm done with this as well. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what do you have an estimate, I guess, on when we could actually and there's no rush. I'm just trying to get a realistic estimate here of when do you think we could have this deployed to our test net so that we're actually validating the Kusama blocks? Are we talking like weeks or like next week or like a month?
Okay, so and this week is to get this one in. Post that, maybe Nazar, you could pitch in here. What's the process of actually what we're thinking on? How are we thinking on deploying this current changes or the latest runtime? That would ideally depend on that, Jeremiah. Like once we have that timeline there, then there could be a better estimate on like when we can get these changes into the production test net.
So code will be ready to deploy like by early next week, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to do the process post that deployment phases yet. So
sure, yeah, and we need to work on that process
yeah.
internally anyways. We kind of have an ad hoc process for that, but okay.
Yeah, ideally end of next week, this should be production ready, including the ownership.
Okay. Cool. Any questions for Ved? All right, thanks a lot, Ved. Thanks for the great work on this. Looking forward to seeing this ready to go. Okay, Serge, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Let me share the screen. Okay, I assume you can see my screen. So as Ved mentioned, we're working together to do updates, and I'm trying to integrate Relayer. Specifically, since on Relayer we are currently using only create call and put call from pilot feeds, and there were some changes. And for create, let me just scroll a bit. We now have to provide some data. We created a type initial validation, and we provide header. When we create feed, we provide header. We are going to sync from. We provide authority list and set ID. So I added to our create feed script fetching authorities and set ID over here. And the chain type, currently it's included in the initial validation, but in the most recent iteration of pilot feeds, it's a separate parameter. So this will be updated after current PR by Ved will be merged. And regarding put call, I'm currently working on decoding finality proofs. So previously we had finality proof as an optional parameter for relay chain blocks. And instead of that, we are going to include for blocks that do not have justifications, we are going to include justification from finality proof. So I am checking if the block has oh, it's not included into this PR, but the idea is that I'm checking if there are any justifications in the block already, and if there is none, then I will fetch finality proof, and we will add decode finality proof and add justification from finality proof and submit only block. So it kind of simplifies the API a little bit. And yeah, that's what I'm
I have
working
a question
on.
about that actually.
Yes.
So those justifications that sometimes are present in the block, are they the same justifications that you can retrieve separately?
Yes.
Like, are they interchangeable? Okay.
Yes.
Hey Sam, there's like some background music or something. Do you mind putting yourself on mute? Thanks.
Yeah, so I can elaborate a little bit on that. So when we fetch block, when there is authorities change, then justifications will be included in the block. And usually there are no justifications, because usually we don't have authorities set to change. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. I was just wondering if authorities set change and like regular justifications are like completely different things. So you like need to separate keys for that, but if not, that's fine.
No, it's same justification as far as I know.
It's the same justification. Authorities are usually coming from the digest of the header, so we pull them from those blocks. As long as we don't miss those blocks, we should be fine between the authority sets.
By the way, do we have a check that the block numbers should be
Always increasing.
incremental? Increasing and by 1, not like 10, 20 because the same error, the same epoch.
Yeah, it's usually inferred like it's increasing by 1 because of the parent head that we use to actually verify. But we
Right.
can make it more explicit as well. I just like with justifications, there is a possibility that we want to skip. Like there is an option that we can skip because the justifications are like usually merged over a range sometimes if you ask for it. But yeah, like we can explicitly.
But we
make
need
it.
blocks themselves anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But we because we rely on a parent ISO, we always the next one should be validly respected.
Okay, so Serge, is this ready to go? Just pending VED's updates to, or pending it being deployed to the chain?
So I'm waiting for this current PR merged, and I need to test it because currently I was testing it on the previous, like on the current main, and it's a little bit different.
Okay.
So
and
we
how are you
still
testing
need few. I'm creating feeds, like from Relayer.
You're just testing it locally?
Yes, currently I'm testing it because we didn't deploy it anywhere.
Right. Okay. Okay. And what's the what is y'all's understanding right now of how we're going to start the checkpointing, where we're going to start validating this at?
Well, I still need to finish with finality proof decoding, and this is my main challenge, and I'm still working on that. And when it's done, it should be. Yeah, we should be ready when it's done.
We figured out a way to actually get the authorities as well as the initial data that we need at any point in time. We just need to know which block number that we want to go with. If you want to do the live archiving, we could go with the latest block that has the authority set starting, and then we can just go from there, and then we can pre-fill the remaining. Again, that depends on how we want to do it. Like with live, I think it makes a lot of sense to just take the latest one and then start from there. And then maybe in a few upgrades that are coming in with the feeds, we could automatically start to pinpoint the previous blocks as well based on the discussion that we had with Nazar, like having filling up the block empty spaces in the chain you're going behind.
Okay, makes sense. So yeah, we'll just go with the latest block, and then in the future we'll support reverse validation. Okay, great. Okay, are we expecting there's going to be any challenges as we do this for Polkadot as well?
This was with the full intention of getting the Polkadot and Kusama done. Like the Polkadot.
Oh, so we're deploying them both at the same time. I thought we were just working on one to test it out.
I mean, it's just a relayer API at that point, because both of them would require similar set of data as long as we have script to fetch the authority list. Search would already have it. So it should be out of the box for both the relayers and parachains as well. I missed discussing about the parachain validation as well, or not validation, importing as well, but I have that covered too. Like in that sense, for parachain blocks, we don't validate, but rather we just object map those blocks so that they are also available in the key value store.
Isn't that the way it was before?
Yeah, same.
I think that was the way it was before, but we wanted to verify that the parachain block is actually valid according to relay chain block somehow.
Yeah, so right now we don't validate that. We just took the default implementation from the feeds, but that could ideally be a next step. If you want to actually verify the parachain blocks coming in as part of the relay chain block, we could do that. But from the current implementation of the relayer, I think relayer is pushing the parachain blocks as and when they are getting finalized as part of the relay chain blocks.
Okay, so by verification of the parachain blocks, we mean just checking that the hash in the relay chain is the same as the block that's getting committed to the parachain. Just the pointers. Okay. So right now we're basically trusting, like, if the block is relayed in and the parachain block is correct, or the relay chain block is correct, then implicitly the rest is correct, but we're not actually checking that. Okay.
For parachains, yes.
Right.
But it could be fetched out properly, because right now we are namespacing the blocks based on the block hash, so they can always fetch it from our key value store and verify the parachain block, or like relay chain block first, and fetch the parachains that are part of them as well. They will be in the parachain block too. Does it make sense? Like the
right, but you can the same way you can validate Polkadot yourself, but the idea was that the blockchain will do it, right?
No, no. What I mean is, you could always fetch the relay chain blocks and then get the parachain blocks that are part of that relay chain to actually verify that the parachain blocks are what are like verified implicitly as part of the relay chain itself.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, but ideally, I mean, it's not critical for.
But yeah,
for
but
this...
it's.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's not straightforward. I totally agree. Like the validation is not as straightforward as the relay chain. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, right now we just want to incrementally release just the verification of the relay chain blocks, but in a future upgrade, we could do this more explicit verification so that any para block we know is valid without having to do any secondary checks. But we just want to try to get this out soon.
Yeah. I think that should be pretty doable as well, Jeremy. I've just been thinking about it, but we can speak more on that when we want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay, any questions from the group on feeds validation? Awesome. Okay, Skylar, do you want to give us an update on the parachain onboarding process?
Yeah, sure. Just have a few updates for that. I did reach back out to Nate from PureStake, the company behind Moonbeam and Moonriver, about when they're going to make the transition to their new slot. He said they still don't have a specific date, but he talked to the devs and he said it should be a seamless transition. You won't even notice a difference. So that was his answer to the question. If you have any more questions about that, Serge, I can surely poke deeper, but he said they just don't know when they're going to make that exact transition.
Hasn't it already happened, Serge?
Yeah, I thought it happened on April 3rd. No,
that's what I thought.
Was
yeah,
scheduled for April 3rd.
That's what the ambassador told me, but I didn't know if you had seen that already. If that's the case, then we're good. Okay, cool. Well, that's great. So yeah, that's great. So that's the update there. Otherwise, as far as the lease auctions go or the slot auctions, 6 days ago when we last met, the Turing Network won a slot. Their Kusama parachain. That's the last new parachain to be added. So we're just waiting on them to be onboarded to the relay chain. Otherwise, there's 2 more auctions going on, one on Kusama, one on Polkadot. Of course, Kusama's next auction ends on April 10th. So I think that's Sunday. And right now, Pichu is the parachain that's leading. With after 2 days, they already have 1.5 million pledged in KSM. And then Polkadot, their next auction ends in 6 days. And it looks like Unique Network is leading that one. So between 4 and 6 days, we'll have more parachains to add to the schedule. Otherwise, it's just Turing Network for now. And that's all my updates. Pretty simple there. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much, Skylar. Okay, Serge, any updates on your side on the new parachains we're onboarding?
No new parachains were added since we last spoke. I'm still waiting for Equilibrium to have public RPC endpoint. I reached out to On Finality, but there was no response for them. So this is the only live parachain which is not covered yet. So I keep an eye on that.
Do they have an endpoint in the Polkadot Explorer?
No. You can see on Polkadot apps that they are producing blocks and blocks are included, but the hyperlink is not active if you want to click and check.
Do they have their own UI somewhere so you can try to see in the DevTools what the RPC endpoint is or contact them? It's strange that they are producing blocks but not available anywhere.
Yeah, Skylar, actually, if you could try to reach out through their ambassadors or through their, I believe we have a contact with them in Telegram that you might be a group of as well. But if you could try reaching out to them and just letting them know, hey, we're really love to archive your chain. You're the only one that we're not archiving in the whole .sama eco. Can you help us find a public RPC endpoint?
Yeah, this is for Equilibrium, right? To find the public RPC endpoint. Yeah, I can reach out to them for that.
Yeah, and whoever if you can get a developer or somebody technical, just try to put them in touch with Serge.
Definitely, I can do that.
Okay. Anything else, Serge?
On parachains, no.
Okay. And does anyone know if all of these have been rolled forward into the relayer front end that we're displaying everything that we're actually archiving correctly there?
Yeah, most second cohort of Polkadot should be there, yeah, according to the board, Leo added them.
Okay, cool. Skylar, if you can just do a scrub of that just to make sure that everything is up to date, and if not, just ping Leo and remind him, please, if there's anything on there that's not.
Yeah, I checked it last night and it was good, but I'll make sure that it's all.
Oh, okay. If you checked it, we're good then. Great.
Okay, cool.
No problem. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any questions on the new parachains from the group? Okay. All right, Serge, do you want to talk about the Ethereum integration now?
Yeah, so I didn't do much progress since I was focusing on grandpa verification on Relayer. But what I did for Ethereum was I did some research. How can we process EVM blocks, and how should we create an archive and stuff like that. So currently, Ethereum RPC only returns JSON, but we want to submit blocks as binary. And those binary blocks, they are stored only like on level DB. So one way we can do that is just run a local node and get blocks from the level DB locally and submit them to Relayer. Alternatively, we could use, so there is one node as a service provider that offers this service, like this feature, fetching raw binaries, but it requires like a dedicated server, so it might be expensive, and maybe it's still something we can consider, but not as a like proof of concept, not at this stage. Yeah, basically that's what I have for Ethereum at the moment.
Okay, so there is a palette, I don't remember from where, that supposedly allows us to verify Ethereum, right? That's something that mentioned. And it should have some data structures in it, right, for the block representation.
Yeah, I've seen that. The thing with that is they only need very minimal data to actually verify the header. I was talking mostly on the Snowfork side of things. Snowfork is using a light client on their side, Ethereum light client. Now they don't need to store. They don't have our use case in the sense like they don't want to store a full block of it. They just want to store enough information that they can verify the POW ETH hash from one block to the other block when they are moving the headers. So in that sense, they don't expect a full block to come in. They just rather expect the difficulty at that point, the header of the previous, and some proofs, the ETH hash proofs that they would need as part of the Merkle tag. That's it. No transactions, nothing like that.
Right, but even then, you can still treat transactions as opaque data and just make sure that they hash to the hash that is included in the header. So, I don't know.
We could do that, but our goal would be to actually have those transactions fully into the block, right? So that we can archive the entire block.
Yeah.
But in order, like, so that is something that we still have to consider, like what kind of data that we want to push in. Like, of course, we can verify a particular header is like done POW and all that stuff. But what kind of data that we want to push in as part of that is something that we have to discuss. Like I've been looking at it as well along with Serge. There's a bunch of data that we won't need, like example, events and everything. We don't need the post-state data. We just need the pre-state data of that block, right? So some things that we can avoid.
We need to push just the block.
Yeah, just the block. But the block wouldn't contain all of the transactions, but rather transaction hashes that gets propagated.
Well, that's what I mean by the block is the transactions, not the transaction hashes.
Yeah. So like there is a header and there is a body. We need like the whole body with actual transactions.
Yeah, that is something that we have to define because that RPC is like that structure is not exposed through RPC. Like we have to tap into the Go Ethereum or some other things to actually tap into the network as to how the network receives the block, and we just save that block as is.
Yeah, so what I was trying to say is that from the like feeds API point of view, it doesn't really matter what you submit, it's just a vector of bytes. But if you have some data structure during validation that we are using, like we assume that it looks kind of like Polkadot block, where you have like a header and then just a vector of transactions, then maybe we can define that and serialize into binary in that form using, let's say, scale codec event.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like we need to define what we need to include as part of our structure that we get in, so that we know like where to start, like what to archive in the first place.
Right. So then there will be no problem that it returns JSON. We can turn it into that data structure on the layer side and submit as binary.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, is there enough information in there that we want to archive is the only thing that we have to look at. Like if there is enough information, we're good. If we want to include the actual transaction rather than transaction hashes, then we'd have to make some changes to that structure.
Yeah, we want to include the actual transactions, not the transaction hashes. Now, like in the feeds, like in the state that we cache, we'll just have the block header or some metadata. We don't need all that. But when we submit it, it's going to be the full block. Like basically everything you need to sync an archival node or to sync a node from Genesis would need to be in there.
Yeah, but
yeah, actually, like spec for the network communication would be a perfect hashes. Reference.
Exactly. Though I looked at the network and they only written the hashes, so we have to make that change on our end.
Sorry, we have
the transaction hashes, like because like when they are propagating in the network, they just have the reference to the transaction because everyone has a mempool, right? So we need to tap into that and then add the transactions mapped to the hash rather than just the transaction hashes.
It's like compact blocks, I believe it's called, right? Instead of transactions, you include hashes.
Who does that? Ethereum Geth does that now?
The API at least does that.
I think that's there might be an option for that. There should be like the full block should be propagated as part of the gossip network. I don't believe they propagate the compact block. I don't think that's how, unless they've made an update to their protocol.
Yesterday, when Serge and I were looking at few APIs, we saw the transaction headers, and I assume that that's going to be the case. But again, like very preliminary, we did have to make.
Okay, are you talking about JSON RPC API?
JSON RPC API. Yeah.
We are talking about the networking, how nodes talk to each other on the gossip network. They're not using JSON RPC for that.
Like that could, like I'm not sure, Jeremiah. Maybe you are correct on that. Like I think they might.
No, don't they use Kademlia to talk to each other, or are we talking about something else?
Not in Ethereum. Maybe in ETH2. That's how it works, but not in ETH1.
Sorry,
ETH2 uses peer-to-peer and a bunch of stuff from
it. Okay. So one idea or one thought is if we look at the the old parity client, now Open Ethereum, the Rust client for Ethereum, shouldn't that have some sort of like a way to like there's probably some palette or whatever, like some module that can take this JSON representation of the block and translate it to binary and back and forth, that we might be able to just like extract from that library and then run that. I don't know if we can run that in the relayer since it's not Rust, but somewhere like we could. It seems like this is like we're probably not the first people in the world that need to translate a full block of Ethereum from JSON to binary. There should be like some library or something that does this already. That's embedded somewhere. Yeah. Maybe even in JavaScript, I don't know. But definitely in Rust, I would imagine. So I guess if nothing else, we could just run it like in WebAssembly and expose it.
So there is a JavaScript library for crawling dev P2P, because that's where the communication happens. I can post it. It might, I don't know, you might find it useful. I've looked at it once before. I'll send a copy of that to you, Serge. Is there anything you can?
Sure. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah. Looking at the Go Ethereum network, I think there is I think you're right, Jeremiah. Like they do include the transactions, so I think that structure is something that we can take off from there. I just posted the link there.
Cool. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts or questions on the Ethereum integration? Okay. So I think probably maybe in about a week and a half, we should be able to start making progress on this again, Serge. Is it about how much longer you think you'll be working on the relayer integration?
Well, once we are done with grandpa verification, yeah, I will start with Ethereum.
Awesome. Yeah, it would be really awesome if we could have a demo of archiving Ethereum whenever I have to speak at the Ethereum Silicon Valley meetup. They would really appreciate that. I think they literally said to me something like, what are you going to show us that you're doing for Ethereum? Like, why should you be able to talk here? And so it'd be great if I could show them that. Even just a demo.
Let's aim for that then.
No, that's May 5th, by the way. So got a little bit of time, got a month. Okay. All right. Any other topics that we need to cover? Any other open questions?
I have one. So we've restarted the testnet, that one that was running for many weeks and months. So we have test A deployed. It does seem to work, just does seem to be slow. So Polkadot seems to be synced fully, but the Kusama, it's like 3 million blocks. Not sure what's up with that.
Yeah, this is related to the issue I mentioned, like when we submit extrinsic, when we submit blocks, sometimes it's dropped due to some timeout, and it's only on test A, and it's mostly on Kusama. For Polkadot, it works fine. I don't know. I still have it on my list. I just had no chance to dig deeper.
Yeah, it went to like 130 gigabytes fairly quickly, but last 70 gigabytes is like really taking a long time. It almost feels like the archive is not up to date, so it tries to fetch it from the RPC instead of going through archive. That's my impression. I don't see other explanation for this.
Or archive should be same, because when I created test A environment, I copied fresh archives.
That's just how it seems to behave. I don't know.
Okay. Anything else we need to discuss? Awesome. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you again next week. Hopefully we'll be validating Polkadot and Kusama by then.